What is up, guys? It is Marcus from Perspective Sports, and today we're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers. One of, if not the most historic franchise in NFL history, with 13 total championships, 4 of them being Super Bowls. And the last time the Packers won a Super Bowl was in 2010, where they had 6 total Pro Bowlers. 4 of them were on defense. They had 3 All-NFL team members. All 3 were on defense. But since winning that Super Bowl and going on that amazing run, they haven't been the same. The year after winning the Super Bowl, the Packers went 15-1 with Aaron Rodgers winning his first MVP after carrying a defense that ranked dead last in yards per game, giving up over 412 yards per game. But then we're going to lose in the divisional round 37-20 to the New York Giants. Then we'll get bounced 2 years in a row by the 49ers. But then after putting together a 12-4 season and having a 12-point lead in Seattle with over a minute left, they blew it. In a moment I like to forget, but can't. Then losing a good game in overtime to Arizona after an amazing Hail Mary. And then last year, after running the table, got obliterated by the Atlanta Falcons, as the Falcons offense put up 493 yards and 44 points. And trust me, if they wanted to, they could have done worse. Putting together this nice collage of disappointment. But the Packers have not been the same team since that Seahawks game, specifically where Bostic dropped that onside kick. And for the first time in 8 years, the Packers will not be participating in the playoffs. But even when the Packers were in the playoffs, teams didn't fear them despite them having the man, Aaron Rodgers. But why is that? The Packers' offense is ranked top 15 5 of the last 7 years and top 10 4 of the last 7 years. But when you compare that to their defense, that ranked in 2011, dead last, 2012, 16th, 2013, 24th, 2014, 15th, 2015, 17th, 2016, 25th, and 2017, 26th as of week 15. So as you can see, they only ranked in the top half of the league once in the last 7 years. So as you can see, teams don't fear the Green Bay Packers because they know they can keep up with their offense due to their lackluster defense that has finished 15th or higher in yards per game allowed just once, and is ranked higher than their offense just as many times. The Packers have done an excellent job of not replenishing one of the most feared units at one point in time in NFL history and turning it into the literal definition of a talent deficiency. Now, with that being said, the Packers do have some players that I believe will be contributing players and productive players in their career, like Demarius Randall, Blake Martinez, HaHa Clinton-Dix, Kevin King, Dean Lowry, Josh Jones, and then they have veterans such as Clay Matthews, Nick Perry, and Mike Daniels. But that's not enough. The Packers need to continue to add to this team if they want to be serious title contenders and not contenders because Aaron Rodgers' name is on the roster. And here's how they can do that this offseason, and let's start with coaching changes. And let's start with firing defensive coordinator Dom Capers and offensive coordinator Edgar Bennett. Then reassigning Ted Thompson the lead scout, hiring Patriots cornerback coach Josh Boyer as defensive coordinator, hiring Mike McCoy as offensive coordinator, and promote Elliott Wolf to general manager. And let's start with the most obvious in my opinion, and that's letting Dom Capers go. We've seen way too many 3rd and 13, 3rd and 24s, 3rd and 11s go for 20, 30, and even 40 yards. I trust our defense more on 4th and inches than on 3rd and 24, and that's sad. The Packers gave up 43.4% of 3rd down conversions. That's 5th worst in the NFL. And then they give up 80% of 4th down conversions to the opposing team. That's 2nd worst only to San Francisco, who gives up 81.8%. Extremely unacceptable numbers. And let's compare his numbers since winning the Super Bowl, where his defense ranked 1st in points per game allowed and 3rd in yards per game allowed. Since winning the Super Bowl in 2010, his defense is ranked in 2011, 22nd, 2012, 13th, 2013, 24th, 2014, 14th, 2015, 11th, 2016, 25th, and as of week 15 in 2017, 21st. On your screen has been a side-by-side comparison of the two stats in yards per game allowed and points per game allowed, and that's to tell you all you need to know why we need to move on from Dom Capers. And to replace him, we'd bring in a guy like Josh Boyer, who most people have never heard of, but he's been on the Patriots staff for 11 years, learning under Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia for a good amount of that time, and the Patriots secondary has been locked down recently, and the Packers secondary happened to be the biggest weakness on the team. This seems to be a perfect match to me, and I really think this would be a good pickup for the Green Bay Packers. Next is firing Edgar Bennett because, in all reality, is he needed? Mike calls the plays and apparently will never surrender them again, but when he did surrender them, he gave them to Tom Clements, who's gone now. But we need a real offensive coordinator who's going to utilize the run more and not have Aaron Rodgers out there playing hero ball. Rodgers with 13 screws and 2 plates in his collarbone threw 45 times, and after Aaron Jones broke 2 huge runs, only saw the ball 1 more time the rest of the game. Unbelievable. I strongly believe that Mike McCarthy needs to hand over the play calling duties, and bringing in a grizzled vet like Mike McCoy, former head coach of the San Diego, now LA Chargers, the offensive coordinator with the Carolina Panthers and Denver Broncos. He was also a quarterbacks coach and wide receiver coach with the Panthers. A man that needs no real introduction will help take the pressure off of Mike McCarthy's shoulders and let him call the plays. He will utilize the run game and have the Packers offense at a healthy run-pass balance. And as a bonus, we get to call our head coach and offensive coordinator Mike and Mike. And that's pretty cool. Now, what to do with Ted Thompson? He's a great talent evaluator, great drafter, great scout, but not a great free agency go-getter, a reluctant money spender, and not very good at retaining talent. He's shown no signs of wanting to retire, but if we can convince him to take a reassignment as head scout, something he admittedly loved to do, and that being a scout, Ted Thompson just focusing on scouting would do wonders for the Packers. Also, Ted Thompson's understudies seem to have all learned from his mistake. John Dorsey, a guy who I just made a video on, learned from Ted. He learned how to build a team through using the trade market, signing free agents even if it cost a lot of money, and bringing the expensive ones in, while at the same time still putting the same emphasis and value into the draft. John Snyder, the Seahawks GM, does the same thing. He's a high roller. He will not be afraid to pay anyone while at the same time being a great drafter. Elliott Wolf can see their success and will follow their blueprint because he knows how to use all 3 facets to get talent: free agency, drafts, and trade. Not only using the draft, which Ted Thompson does extremely well, but you're very limited in how good your team can actually get. Now for the player personnel part of the offseason. And these were my signings before Devontae Adams and Corey Lindsey got their extensions, and I was almost spot on. I have Devontae Adams making $13 million less on top, but $5.5 more in guarantees. And it's currently reported that he got $27 million in guarantees, according to Bleacher Report. And Corey Lindsey, I had $500,000 less off the total value, and the guarantees are not out yet, but I'm going to assume it's still about $15 million for the sake of this video. But heading into the offseason prior to the signings, the Packers were projected to have $42,254,774 in cap space, 13th most in the NFL, and that number is now down to $30,504,744, assuming Corey will have $15 million in total guarantees. And here's what to do with that. And let's start with the players we need to resign, and the Packers now have 9 free agents. Player personnel resigning number 1 is wide receiver Jeff Janis on a 2-year, $2 million deal with $500,000 in guarantees. Jeff Janis is pretty much known for the amazing catches he made versus Arizona in the playoffs, but his 2017 campaign has been a forgettable one at best, returning 3 kicks and being targeted twice all year, catching 1 pass for 12 yards. And due to this lackluster season, Green Bay will be able to get him on a literal definition of a bargain, despite knowing what he can do in the past where he's had some pretty good games and has showed up in big moments for us. Number 2, long snapper Brett Good on a 1-year, $900,000 deal with $390,000 guaranteed, which is the same contract he had this year. He works extremely well with Mason Crosby and Vogel, and to keep the same exact special teams intact in terms of snapping, holding, kicking, would be very good for the Green Bay Packers. Next up is Richard Rodgers, who's had another letdown of a season, actually his worst season yet, meaning the Packers won't have to pay much to keep him, and they'll pay him $9 million over 2 seasons with $5 million guaranteed. And finally, strong safety Morgan Burnett will be on a 3-year, $35 million deal with $28.5 million guaranteed. Morgan Burnett is a huge part of the Packers defense, and it'll just be an all-out travesty to lose Burnett to free agency after watching guys like Micah Hyde and Casey Hayward, both Pro Bowlers this season, walk and be successful in other places. Now entering free agency, the Packers have 47 of the 53 roster spots filled and a little over $17 million entering free agency. But before we hit the free agency market, we need to restructure 2 important contracts for players who might actually be cut otherwise. they're Packers fan favorites Clay Matthews and Jordy Nelson, both players who the Packers have outs for in their contract after this season ends. But I strongly believe both guys want to be Packers. They spent their whole career here in Green Bay and will be willing to take pay cuts to avoid being cut from Green Bay. And I believe Jordy will take a $3.25 million cut, taking his salary from $9.25 million to $6 million, and Clay Matthews will be taking a huge cut from $10.1 million to $5 million, creating $8.35 million in new money and bringing the Packers cap space to $26,214,774. Now on to free agency, where we have to look at our targets. Keep in mind, Green Bay is in Wisconsin. It's not in Los Angeles, New York, Miami, Texas, etc. It's really cold and not much to do there from what I hear. So we're going to have to really convince people with the checkbook and sell the chance at a title. And here are the free agency targets. Defensive end Julius Peppers of the Carolina Panthers, Cowboys defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, Sheldon Richardson of the Seattle Seahawks, Jonathan Joseph of the Houston Texans, Trumaine Johnson of the Los Angeles Rams, E.J. Gaines of the Buffalo Bills, Dante Johnson of the San Francisco 49ers, Patrick Robinson, Patrick Sims, and David Bass. As you probably noticed, they're all defensive guys. Something that the Packers are going to spend money on, it needs to be on the defensive side of the football. And now let's look at the Packers' signings from this offseason. Defensive end Julius Peppers of the Carolina Panthers on a one-year, $5 million fully guaranteed deal. And let's be real, Julius Peppers is the Tom Brady of defense, an ageless wonder. This season he has 11 sacks and 33 total combined tackles. Next, we have cornerback Dante Johnson from the San Francisco 49ers on a 4-year, $32 million deal with $24 million guaranteed. Johnson's only 26 years old and has had an amazing season this year, recording 63 tackles and a pick six. Next up, we have Patrick Sims, defensive tackle from the Cincinnati Bengals. Sims will be on a 1-year, $5 million deal with $2 million guaranteed, and he'll be a big body disruptor as he has 22 tackles on the season for the Green Bay Packers. Next, we have David Bass on a 2-year, $5 million deal with $1.5 million guaranteed. And David Bass is also going to be a valuable edge rusher for the Green Bay Packers as he has 22 tackles and 2.5 sacks. Finally, the Packers re-signed Jahari Evans on a 1-year, $3 million deal with $1.5 million guaranteed. Evans has been one of the bright spots on the Packers' offensive line that has seen its fair share of injuries and struggles this season. The Packers have used $15,250,000 of their $26,214,774 of cap space. That's 58% and not too bad. Now on to the draft. And here are the names of the guys the Packers will be drafting and a trade that the Packers will make, trading their second round 51st overall and 115th overall 4th rounder to the New York Jets in exchange for this 42nd overall pick in the second round. And now let's get into why the Packers would draft these players. And in the first round with the 19th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers will select linebacker Roquan Smith out of Georgia. Smith is a beast, hands down. He's an excellent open field tackler. He can blow up plays in the backfield and would be a perfect addition to this Packers defense. On the season, he has 113 total tackles, 10.5 for loss, and 5.5 sacks. In the second round, the trade that happened, the Packers move up from the 51st overall to the 42nd overall pick with the trade from the Jets in order to select Mitch Hyatt out of Clemson, offensive tackle, with the 42nd overall pick. The Packers need some more O-line depth, and trading up for the 6'5", 304-pound tackle from Clemson who has received the Jacobs Blocking Trophy, which is handed out to the ACC's best blocker, is definitely worth it. And in the third round with the 83rd overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select Brandon Faison out of Virginia Tech. Brandon is an extremely good cover corner and has solid measurables, standing at 6'2" and weighing 197 pounds. He also can make plays in the backfield, covering screens well, and even getting the running back at times. We don't know his arm length just yet, but standing at 6'2" is a good indicator that he has long arms and he knows how to use them. Overall, Faison is a playmaker and will be an absolute steal if the Packers can get him in the third round. And in the fifth round with the 147th overall pick, the Packers select quarterback Kurt Benkert out of Virginia. The Packers do have Brett Hundley, who showed the ability to be a good backup quarterback that can come in and win you some games as long as he's not a starter for an extended period of time. With his contract expiring after the 2018 season, how much will he demand, or how much will the Packers be willing to pay? Benkert is the complete package and has been overshadowed by this deep quarterback class because Benkert can throw on the run, he can throw in the pocket, and has the ability to make plays with his feet, and he has 25 touchdown passes, only 8 interceptions, and 3,062 passing yards on the season. In the sixth round with the 179th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers select tight end Ethan Wolf out of Tennessee. The Packers have 2 productive tight ends in Lance Kendrick and Richard Rodgers, and they still need more. The Packers are definitely going to take a look at 6'6", 258-pound tight end from Tennessee, who had 24 receptions, 246 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and is also a decent blocker. Ethan Wolf will be an excellent pickup for the Green Bay Packers. And as for the 7th round, we don't know if the Packers are going to have a 7th round pick because they traded their 2018 7th rounder conditionally to the Kansas City Chiefs for Nile Davis, and they also could get the Bills 7th rounder depending on the intricacies of a 2016 trade where they sent linebacker Lorente McCray to the Buffalo Bills for a 2018 conditional 7th round pick. But there you guys have it. Obviously, the Packers would sign undrafted free agents and have compensatory picks. But this is how I feel the Packers should attack the offseason for the most part. This is one of the more important offseasons in the Packers' history. And again, don't mess it up, Green Bay. I also signed DJ Hayden to a 1-year, $5 million deal, $3 million guaranteed, and brought back Geronimo Allison on a restricted player tender that'll pay him $1.979 million to get the roster to 53. And before we leave, here's a glance at the new Packers roster. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time.